Single dad tried to stop his daughter from playing chess, but her first move left the CEO in tears. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding, revealing a woman in a sharp black suit, arms crossed, her gaze sharp enough to cut glass. "Sir, you're not supposed to be on this floor." Owen Bennett adjusted the heavy tool bag on his shoulder and offered a polite smile. "Printer emergency, room 47A. I was told it's urgent." The woman raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. 47A is the executive floor." "I figured," Owen replied, glancing around at the marble floors and the tension thick enough to choke on. "Look, I'll be out of here as soon as I fix your CFO's printing tantrum. Just point me to the machine." The woman didn't answer. Instead, her gaze shifted to the small figure standing quietly behind Owen, a little girl clutching his tool belt. "Is that your daughter?" "Yeah," Owen admitted with a sheepish grin. "Babysitter bailed, school's closed, and I can't exactly leave an 8-year-old alone at home. Don't worry, she'll sit quietly and read, won't touch a thing." The woman hesitated, then stepped aside without another word. "Thanks," Owen nodded, stepping through the glass doors. What he didn't know was that behind the smoked glass walls of the executive lounge, a pair of sharp, calculating eyes had just spotted something unexpected in the middle of her sterile world. The executive lounge at Carrington Enterprises gleamed like something out of a modern art museum. Chrome accents, floor-to-ceiling windows, a coffee bar better stocked than most restaurants. And at the center of the room, a low table with a dazzling crystal chess set, its pieces catching the sunlight like diamonds and obsidian. "Wow," Arya whispered, eyes wide. She looked up at her father, unsure. "Can I?" "No," Owen said gently but firmly. "That's not ours. Just sit over there, finish your book. I won't be long." He ruffled her hair, dropped a kiss on her forehead, and disappeared down the glass hallway. Arya sat. For a moment she did read, but the pieces, those beautiful pieces, called to her like old friends waiting to speak. She glanced around. No one seemed to be watching. Her tiny fingers reached out, lifting a knight, feeling the cold weight of it. And that's when the voice came. "You know how that one moves." Arya gasped, nearly dropping the piece. She turned to see a woman standing there, tall, poised, in a perfectly cut white blazer and heels that clicked like thunder on the tiles. I'm sorry," Arya stammered. "I wasn't going to break it. I was just looking." The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied Arya with eyes like glassy steel, eyes that had stared down CEOs, board members, and foreign dignitaries without blinking. "You're not in trouble," she said at last. "I just asked a question. Do you know how the knight moves?" Arya nodded slowly. "It moves in an L shape, 2 up, 1 to the side, or 2 over, 1 up." The woman tilted her head. "That's correct. Impressive." "I learned from a book," Arya added. "It had missing pages." That made the woman's eyebrow twitch. "You play often?" "No," Arya admitted. "Only in my head." The woman stepped closer to the table. "Would you like to play just one game?" 10 minutes later, Owen returned to find his daughter sitting across from Sloane Carrington, the most powerful woman in the building. His breath caught. Everyone in the city knew Sloane Carrington, billionaire CEO, known for firing people mid-meeting if they wasted her time. What was she doing talking to his daughter? He rushed forward. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. Arya, sweetheart, we need to go." "She's fine," Sloane interrupted, not taking her eyes off the board. "Your daughter has a sharp mind." Owen looked from the board to Arya, who was biting her lip, staring hard at the pieces like she could see something no one else did. "She's 8, he said. Sloane moved a rook with surgical precision. So was Mozart when he composed his first symphony. "She's just a kid." "She's something else," Sloane murmured, almost to herself. Arya didn't speak. She was too focused. And then, 5 moves later, she set her queen down gently and said, "Check." Sloane sat back. A long pause. "Check, indeed." she said softly. Owen exhaled. Okay, seriously, what's going on here? Sloane finally looked at him. For a moment, her eyes softened. She's gifted, she said. Would you let her come back? Just to play another game. Owen hesitated. Every instinct told him to say no. But Arya looked up at him with those bright eyes that had seen too much disappointment in her short life. Please, Daddy, she whispered. He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know. We're not exactly this world. Sloane leaned in slightly. Neither was I. Not really. And something in her voice, almost imperceptible, made Owen pause. There was more here, something deeper, something she wasn't saying. He looked at Arya, then at the woman across from her. One game, he said. Just one. Sloane nodded, but as Arya turned back to the board, smiling, Sloane's eyes remained on her, unblinking, unmoving, like she was staring at something long lost, or someone. And for the first time in years, Sloane Carrington felt something crack beneath her polished surface. Hope, recognition, and something dangerously close to regret. The first move. Owen was quiet on the drive home. Arya sat in the back seat, legs swinging, her backpack on her lap, fingers still clasped together like they were holding invisible chess pieces. Daddy, she said softly, was that lady mad at me? He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. No, sweetheart, she wasn't mad. She was surprised. Because I almost beat her? Owen smiled faintly. You gave her a real scare, but she's not the kind of person who gets scared easily. Arya nodded thoughtfully. Then the question Owen had been dreading. Who is she? He sighed. Her name's Sloane Carrington. She's the CEO of Carrington Enterprises. Is that big? It's one of the biggest, the kind of big that owns floors in every building you see downtown. Arya's eyes widened. So she's like, really rich. Yeah, but money doesn't make someone worth admiring, kiddo. She tilted her head. Then what does? Owen's fingers tightened slightly around the steering wheel. How they treat people when they don't have to be kind. Arya thought about that. Then she looked out the window, her voice a whisper. She was kind to me. The invitation. The next morning, Owen found a message waiting on his phone from Sloane Carrington. Thank you for bringing Arya yesterday. I hope she enjoyed the game. If she's interested, I'd love to invite her to my home this weekend. No obligations. Just another match. Let me know. Owen stared at the message like it was written in a foreign language. She remembered Arya's name. She didn't phrase it like a command. He picked up the phone, started typing a reply, deleted it, typed again. Then he walked into the kitchen where Arya was buttering toast with way too much enthusiasm. Hey, Ari, he said. That lady from yesterday, she wants to play again. Her face lit up like someone had flipped a switch. Really? She invited you to her house this weekend. Arya blinked. A real house? Like a mansion? Yeah, Owen said. A mansion. She set down her knife carefully. Are you going to say yes? He looked at her. Really looked. There was something about his daughter, this quiet fire that lived behind her eyes. She'd always been different, precise, curious, and alone in a way he never quite knew how to reach. I don't know, he admitted. It's not our world, baby. Arya shrugged. I don't care about worlds. I just like the way the pieces felt in my hands. That stopped him cold. She wasn't chasing luxury. She was chasing joy. And what kind of father would he be if he stood in her way? The mansion, Sloane Carrington's estate, looked more like a private museum than a home. The gates opened silently, the driveway curved past manicured lawns, and a fountain taller than their apartment building sparkled in the midday sun. Owen parked his aging sedan beside a row of black luxury cars and tried not to think about how out of place they looked. He reached for Arya's hand, but she was already out of the car, staring at the house with her mouth slightly open. Is this even real? She whispered. He chuckled. Feels like a movie set, huh? But Sloane was real enough when the grand oak doors opened. She stood there in a navy blue blouse, hair pinned up, no makeup, just eyes that scanned them carefully before softening. "I'm glad you came," she said. Her voice was gentler today. "Didn't feel like I had much choice," Owen muttered. "Someone offers my daughter a game of chess in a palace. Kind of hard to say no. I'm not trying to impress her. You don't have to." Their eyes locked. There was tension, but not unkind, just history that hadn't been written yet. The second game. The chess set in Sloane's sunroom was even more magnificent than the one at Carrington HQ. Gold leaf inlays, hand-carved pieces from Italy. But Arya didn't notice any of that. She sat down, folded her hands, and waited. "Black or white?" Sloane asked. "White," Arya smiled. "Always white. I like starting things." They played in silence for the first 5 moves. Then Sloane said softly, "You see the whole board before you move, don't you?" Arya nodded. "It's like the pieces talk, not out loud, just they want to be somewhere." "And how do you know where that is?" "I don't," she said. "I just feel it." Sloane sat back. Her throat tightened and she looked away quickly. "Your daughter," she said to Owen, who stood nearby watching, "is exceptional." "She's just Arya," Owen replied. "She thinks in patterns. Always has." "You ever get her tested? For giftedness?" "No." "Why not?" Owen's voice hardened. "So someone can stick a label on her and make her feel like a freak." Sloane looked over sharply. "Being gifted doesn't make you a freak." "No, but it makes the world expect you to be someone you're not." There was pain in his voice, and Sloane heard it. "I'm not trying to take her," she said quietly. "I didn't say you were. I just want to understand her. You're not the only one." They went silent again, but Arya didn't notice. She was too lost in the dance of bishops and knights and possibilities, until suddenly she smiled. "Check." Sloane stared at the board. "You trapped me," she said. Arya's eyes twinkled. "You taught me how yesterday." Sloane looked up, and for the first time something raw and unguarded passed over her face. "I haven't taught anyone anything in years," she admitted. "But maybe it's time I start again." Owen folded his arms. "What exactly do you want with my daughter, Miss Carrington?" Sloane turned toward him, and this time she didn't hide behind wealth or pride or perfectly chosen words. "I don't know," she said, "but when she sat at that board yesterday, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time." "What?" "Myself," she whispered, "only freer, lighter, unbroken." Owen didn't respond, because deep inside something about that felt true and terrifying, and maybe the beginning of something neither of them expected. The truth unfolds. Later that evening, after the sun dipped below the water and the sky turned lavender, Arya stood alone in Sloane Carrington's library. Her small fingers traced the edge of a bookshelf lined with first editions. The room smelled like old paper and polished wood. Through the tall windows, the waves whispered secrets only the night could hear. She turned toward the marble chessboard, still left untouched since their afternoon game. "May I?" she asked softly, sensing Sloane behind her. Sloane had been watching from the doorway. "Of course," she replied. "It's your board now." Arya smiled and sat, beginning to place the pieces exactly as they were during the middle of their last match. "I've been thinking about this position," she murmured, mostly to herself. "You moved your bishop here, but if you'd waited one more turn, your queen could have pinned my rook. Then I would have had to give up my knight to protect the king." Sloane approached slowly. "You're analyzing what I should have done," Arya nodded. "I replay the games in my head sometimes. Even when I sleep, I see new things." Sloane sat across from her, hands folded. "You see patterns where others don't. That's what my teacher says. But sometimes, the patterns aren't just on the board." Sloane tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Arya hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever feel like someone's missing from your life? Like there's a space in your chest that's shaped like a person, but you don't know who they are?" The question hit Sloane like a quiet blow to the heart. I used to feel that way, she admitted. What made it go away? Sloane's voice caught in her throat. I thought I buried it, but sometimes, even the pieces you sacrifice still haunt the game. Arya looked up at her, confused but curious. Do you mean someone you loved? Sloane nodded. Did they love you back? I think so, Sloane whispered, but I didn't let them stay long enough to prove it. The silence stretched between them. Then Arya asked a question that neither of them expected. Do I remind you of her? Sloane blinked. What? The person you lost. Sloane looked into the girl's face, so young, so brave, and yet holding something impossibly ancient behind her eyes. You remind me of someone I was too scared to become, she said quietly. Arya smiled, a little sad. My dad says bravery isn't loud, it's quiet. It's when you show up anyway. Sloane swallowed hard. Your dad's a wise man. He's the best man I know, Arya said proudly, even if he doesn't own a mansion. And that was the moment Sloane realized just how little her wealth meant in that room. The DNA test. Sloane Carrington never did anything without a reason. Every move she made in business was calculated, timed, and weighed. She didn't believe in accidents, only consequences. But as she sat alone in her private office, staring at the manila envelope on her desk, even she couldn't pretend she had expected this. She picked it up slowly. Inside, a single page, DNA results. At the top, Sample A, Arya Bennett. Sample B, Sloane Carrington. At the bottom, in bold black letters, probability of maternity, 99.999998%. Sloane dropped the paper like it burned her fingers. 8 years. 8 years of silence. 8 years of pretending she had made peace with her decision, and now the truth was staring back at her with Arya's eyes. 9 years earlier, she hadn't meant to fall in love, not with Jameson, not with the idea of a family, and certainly not with the fragile flutter in her belly when the test turned positive. But her father, the late Harold Carrington, had called it a scandal. Unmarried, pregnant, with a man who writes music for a living? What kind of legacy is that? She tried to fight, but Jameson left, broken by her hesitation, and when the pressure became unbearable, her family's lawyers had stepped in. We'll handle it, they said quietly. She'll be adopted by someone trustworthy. No media, no mess. Sloane had signed the papers with tears on her cheeks and ink on her fingertips, and then spent the next 8 years pretending she hadn't made the biggest mistake of her life. Until Arya sat across from her, moving chess pieces like they were old friends. And the eyes. God, the eyes. The same storm-gray color that stared back at her in the mirror every morning. Sloane pressed her palms against her face and whispered, What have I done? The shoebox. At the Bennett apartment, Owen was rewiring a bedside lamp with one hand while helping Arya with a crossword puzzle with the other. You know the capital of Wyoming? He asked. Cheyenne, Arya said instantly. He looked at her. How do you know that? I read your old atlas last week. Of course you did, he muttered, smirking. Anything else I should know about? Are you secretly learning calculus while I sleep? She shrugged. It's kind of boring, he snorted, but as she leaned back against the wall, something flickered across her face. Quiet, thoughtful. Daddy? Yeah? Do you think I'm weird? He turned fully toward her. Where did that come from? People at school don't understand me, even my friends. Emma said I talk too much about chess and patterns, and one time she asked if I was from space. Owen set down the screwdriver. Come here. She scooted over and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Arya, listen to me. The world will always be a little afraid of people who see it differently. That doesn't make you weird. It makes you special. She leaned her head on his chest. Ms. Carrington doesn't think I'm weird. He tensed slightly. She said I remind her of someone she lost. Owen didn't answer right away. What if she wants to keep me? Arya asked quietly. His voice was steady, but his heart stung. You're not something people keep, baby. You're someone people earn. That night, long after Arya fell asleep, Owen dug through the old shoebox in the closet, the one with the letters, the birth record, the adoption forms that were never quite official. He pulled out the only photo he had of Arya as a baby. The handwriting on the back was still clear. Her name is Arya. Please love her like I couldn't. No signature, just a date. He'd always wondered about that line, like I couldn't. Now a name stirred uneasily in his mind, Sloane Carrington. He reached for his phone, searched her name, and what he found made his stomach turn cold. Archived news, rumors from nearly a decade ago. Carrington heiress cancels engagement. Rumored pregnancy quietly disappears from public view. Jameson Wilder, composer, vanishes after messy breakup. The timing lined up, the location, even the child's age. Owen whispered, "No." He looked at the sleeping girl in the next room. He had built his whole world around her, and now it felt like someone was slipping the ground out from under his feet. The nursery. Back at the Carrington estate, Sloane opened the nursery. The room had never been used. Her housekeeper had once asked about it. "Just leave it," she'd said. "It's no one's room." But now she stepped inside for the first time in years. The pale wallpaper was untouched, the crib still assembled. A single stuffed bear sat on the shelf. Sloane picked it up, held it to her chest, and wept, not just for what she'd lost, but for what might never be hers again. The Invitational. The flyer arrived in a navy blue envelope, crisp and gold embossed, like something from another world. Owen turned it over in his calloused hands and read aloud. Young Masters Invitational, New York City, ages 8 to 16, by nomination only. He blinked. "Is this real?" Sloane Carrington stood at the other end of the workshop, her posture straight but her eyes softer than usual. "It's very real. The most prestigious children's chess tournament in the country. Invitations don't come by mail, they come by reputation." He looked up, brows furrowed. "You nominated her?" "No," Sloane said quietly. "She nominated herself, with every move she's made since she sat across from me." Owen exhaled slowly. "You think she's ready?" "She's beyond ready." He looked down again at the flyer, and for a moment all he saw was Arya at the kitchen table, playing with a board missing 3 pawns and a rook, making moves that even he didn't understand. She's still just a kid. "Then let her shine," Sloane said, "before the world tells her to dim." Owen looked at her sharply. "What do you get out of this?" There was no accusation in his voice, just weary honesty. Sloane didn't blink. "I don't want anything from her. Not a headline, not a contract, not a trophy. I only want a chance to be near the miracle I lost." Owen's jaw clenched. "You still haven't told her." "I don't want to shatter her world." "You already did, years ago. You just didn't stay long enough to hear it break." The silence between them thickened. Then Sloane said quietly, "Let her go to New York. Let her play. If you still think I'm a threat after that, I'll disappear." Owen was quiet for a long moment. Then he folded the flyer in half, slid it into his jacket, and walked past her. "I'll talk to her." The truth. Later that night, Owen sat beside Arya on the fire escape outside their apartment. The city lights blinked around them, soft and far away. "I have a question," he said. She looked up. "Yeah? How would you feel about going to New York?" Arya blinked. "For what?" "There's a tournament. Big one. Kids from all over. You'd get to play against the best." Her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? They'd let me in." "They already did." Her mouth dropped open. "Wait, what? Who?" "Sloane nominated you. They accepted." Arya didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, "Do you think I'm good enough?" Owen turned to her, his voice steady. "I think you're better than good enough. I think you're the kind of good that makes people look twice at the world." She looked down. I don't want to lose. Then don't play for the trophy, he said gently. Play for the girl who saw a chessboard and felt like she finally understood something. Arya nodded slowly, but a thought pulled at her. Will you come with me? She asked. Owen laughed softly. Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss it for the world. She paused again. What about her? Owen went still. Miss Carrington, Arya clarified. Will she come too? She might, he said slowly. Would that bother you? Arya looked out at the street below. I don't think so. When she watches me play, I feel like I matter. Owen swallowed hard. You matter to me every second, even when you're not winning anything. I know, she said, leaning against his arm, but with her, it's like I matter in a way I can't explain. And Owen understood, not because he had the words for it, but because he'd seen it too, the way Sloane looked at Arya. Not performance, grief, recognition, and something that looked too much like love to ignore. The tournament. They flew to New York 3 weeks later. The Young Masters Invitational was held in a marble-floored atrium at the Manhattan Grand Hotel. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen fireworks. Rows of pristine chessboards gleamed beneath velvet ropes. Kids in blazers, coaches with clipboards, parents with nerves and money. And in the middle of it all, Arya Bennett in sneakers and a hoodie, eyes wide, fingers twitching with anticipation. Sloane arrived just before the first match. She wore no makeup, just a charcoal coat and a quiet look that made Owen pause. You came? He said. I said I would. Arya spotted her across the room and waved. Sloane hesitated, then raised a hand back. Her voice trembled. She looks happy. She is, Owen said, and terrified, and focused, and full of hope, like a warrior, Sloane whispered, like someone who's never had the luxury of being small. They stood in silence together as Arya sat at her board for round 1. Her opponent was 12, confident, smirking. But 10 minutes into the match, that smirk faded. Sloane leaned toward Owen. She's setting a trap. Owen nodded. Knight to c5. Sloane's eyes widened. How did you? I've played that move 1,000 times at our kitchen table. Sloane looked at him differently then, not with competition, with awe. She gets it from both of us, she said softly. Owen didn't reply, but inside something cracked open, a possibility he hadn't allowed himself to consider. Not yet. The loss. Rain lashed against the hotel windows like the sky had something to grieve. Inside the tournament hall, Arya sat still, palms flat on her knees, eyes fixed on the board. Across from her, Mateo Rivera, 10 years old, national junior finalist, sharp, fast, precise. He'd already beaten 2 top-seeded players, and he played like he had something to prove. Owen stood in the viewing area, hands in pockets, heart pounding with every ticking second of the game clock. Sloane stood beside him, arms crossed, but her knuckles had gone white. She's nervous, Owen said softly. She's focused, Sloane replied, but even she didn't believe it completely. Arya's fingers hovered over her queen. She looked at the board like a painter, staring at a canvas mid-stroke, uncertain whether the next line would ruin everything or make it magic. Then she moved. A risky exchange. A sacrifice. Mateo didn't flinch. He pounced. Within 10 moves, Arya was on the defensive. She didn't see the second pin, Owen murmured. She's off today. 20 minutes passed. Arya's position worsened, and then, checkmate. The word fell like a stone. Arya stared at the board, mouth slightly open. She didn't speak, didn't move. Mateo reached across the board, respectful. Good game. Arya nodded, shook his hand, but her grip was limp. She stood slowly, her ribbon slipping from her lap to the floor without her noticing. Owen met her halfway, crouching to her level. Hey, he said gently. You okay? She looked at him with eyes brimming but dry. I lost. I know. I didn't see the fork. I thought I had it. You made a bold play, Owen said. You took a chance. That's what champions do. Arya's voice trembled. Champions win. Owen placed a hand on her shoulder. Number champions get back up. She shook her head. I don't want to talk right now. Sloane approached quietly. Sweetheart, Arya turned her face away. Please don't. Sloane froze mid-step, a wound flickering across her expression. Raw, visible. She stepped back. Owen mouthed later and guided Arya out of the tournament room. The receipt. They sat in their hotel room with the curtains drawn. Arya curled into the corner of the couch, arms hugging her knees, staring out the rain-covered window. Owen sat across from her with 2 mugs of hot cocoa, untouched. He didn't speak for a while. Sometimes silence was the only rope that could pull a child back across the gap. Finally, Arya whispered, I disappointed you. Owen sat forward. Why would you say that? Because I didn't win. Everyone expected me to. No one in this world has ever expected more from you than you expect from yourself. She looked down. I failed. Owen took a breath. Then slowly he reached into his wallet and pulled out a faded receipt. He unfolded it, careful, deliberate. Know what this is? Arya shook her head. It's the receipt from the pawn shop where I bought our first chessboard. $8. I bought it the day you turned 4. We had leftover mac and cheese and I lit a candle in it. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. You lost every game for months, Owen said. You'd cry when you couldn't protect the king, but you never stopped showing up. You just kept learning. Arya looked up. Why are you telling me this? Because that receipt isn't about money. It's about the moment I realized what you were capable of. He leaned forward. I don't love you because you win. I love you because you try. The silence stretched. Then her voice broke. I'm scared I'm not as good as everyone thinks. Then show them what someone brave looks like. The apology. That evening, Sloane knocked gently on the hotel room door. Owen answered. Arya was curled under a blanket in the corner, reading. I just want a minute, Sloane said quietly. Owen stepped aside. Sloane walked in, cautious. Arya. The little girl didn't look up. Sloane sat at the edge of the couch. I wanted to say something, she said. Not as someone who cares about your talent, but as someone who understands what it means to lose something and not know who you are without it. Arya peeked at her. I lost today. Sloane nodded. I've lost things that never came back. Arya closed her book. Like what? Sloane swallowed. A family, a piece of myself, and once I lost the chance to tell someone how much they meant to me. Did they ever come back? Sloane's voice cracked. No. Arya looked at her for a long moment. Then quietly, I'm not mad at you. I was just embarrassed. You don't ever need to be embarrassed with me, Sloane said, reaching out to gently touch her hand. Not for losing, not for feeling. Never. Arya's fingers curled around Sloane's, slowly. It was a small gesture, but for Sloane Carrington, it felt like being handed a key to a door she never thought she'd get to knock on again. The rooftop. Later that night, Owen stood on the rooftop terrace of the hotel, staring at the New York skyline. He heard the door open behind him, footsteps, then silence. He didn't turn around. You waited long enough, he said. I thought maybe you'd let the truth rot in your throat. Sloane stepped beside him. She didn't speak. Not yet. I know, Owen said, voice tight. I've known for a while now. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Her eyes, he continued. Her hands. The way she sees the world in structure and shapes, but feels it with a softness most people forget how to carry. He finally looked at her. You gave that to her. Sloane's voice was barely audible. I don't deserve the credit. No, you don't, Owen said plainly, but you deserve the truth, and so does she. A long beat passed. Then Sloane whispered, I was 28, fresh out of grad school. My father had just handed me a seat at the board, and then I got pregnant. She exhaled like something broke inside her. He told me if I didn't make it disappear, the board seat would. I tried to keep her. I fought. But the world I lived in, it wasn't built for softness. It rewarded silence, obedience, control. Her voice cracked. So I signed the papers. I told myself she'd be better off not knowing me, that I'd only ruin her. Owen asked the question that had been burning in his chest. Why me? Sloane met his eyes. Because you were the only person I ever trusted to love her more than himself. Owen stared at her for a long, cold moment. You could have told me then. I was terrified you'd shut the door. He looked back at the city. I almost did. Then softer. But she's not a pawn in anyone's game, and she deserves to know where she comes from, even if it hurts. Sloane turned toward him. Owen, I'm not trying to take her. You couldn't even if you wanted to, he said. You don't have to take her. She's not something you carry off. She's someone you stand beside, if she lets you. The wind picked up, blowing Sloane's hair into her face. She didn't brush it away. Do you think she'll hate me? I think she'll ask why, Owen said, and I think you'd better be ready to answer. The finals. The day of the finals dawned with pale gold light. Arya stood at the edge of the tournament hall, gripping the strap of her backpack. You don't have to win to matter, Owen said, kneeling to adjust her sleeve. I know, she whispered, but it's okay if I still want to. He smiled. It is. A voice behind them interrupted. Good morning. They turned. Sloane stood there, elegant, steady, but her eyes shimmered with something fragile. May I speak with her before the game? She asked Owen. He hesitated. Arya looked at him. It's okay, Daddy. He nodded and stepped away. Sloane crouched down to Arya's level. I have something to tell you, she said, voice trembling, and I need you to know that it's the truth, even if it sounds strange. Arya's eyes were steady. Okay. Sloane inhaled deeply. 8 years ago, I had a daughter. I was young. I was scared. I made choices I thought were right, but they weren't. I let someone else raise her, believing she'd be better off without me. Arya's lips parted slightly. That daughter was you. There was no sound, not from the hall, not from the world, just the soft inhale of an 8-year-old girl trying to piece together a puzzle she didn't know she'd been given. You're my mom, she asked, barely above a whisper. Sloane nodded. Yes. Arya blinked, then looked down at her hands. I always thought I didn't come from anyone, she murmured. But now I came from someone who plays chess like fire. Sloane's voice broke. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know. Arya looked back up, eyes clear but unreadable. Why now? Because you deserve the whole truth before you walk onto that board. You deserve to know who you are and where your strength comes from. Arya was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm still playing as Arya Bennett. Sloane's throat tightened. Of course. But maybe someday, Arya added softly, I'll be Bennett Carrington. Sloane's eyes filled with tears. I'd be honored. A bell rang, signaling game time. Owen stepped forward. You ready, kiddo? Arya turned to them both. Can you sit together today? Owen looked at Sloane. She nodded. We'd like that. And for the first time, the three of them walked into the arena, not as strangers, not as secrets, but as something slowly forming into the shape of a family. The champion. Arya's opponent was Gabriel Cho, 13 years old, known for his speed and ruthless endgame. The game began. Move by move, the crowd leaned in. Owen and Sloane sat side by side, hearts pounding, watching Arya glide through the opening like a storm gathering strength. She's calm, Sloane whispered. She's in it, Owen replied. This is her favorite place in the world. Mid-game, Gabriel launched a brutal queenside attack. For a moment, it looked like Arya had no defense. Then, quietly, confidently, she repositioned her knight. 2 moves later, the entire board shifted. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She reversed the pressure, a commentator whispered. At 8 years old, Sloane's hand instinctively reached for Owen's. He let her hold it. In the final 5 moves, the room fell utterly silent. Then, checkmate. A beat of stunned stillness. Then the hall erupted. The crowd stood. Reporters surged. The tournament director raised Arya's hand like a champion in a boxing match. Arya didn't move. She just looked across the board at Gabriel and said, "Thank you for a great game." He nodded, dazed. "You're incredible." She smiled. "I just listened to the pieces." The last piece. Autumn arrived gently that year. Golden leaves floated down like blessings over the Carrington estate, softening its once imposing stone facade. Inside the house that used to echo with silence, laughter now spilled into the halls like music. In the sunroom, Arya sat cross-legged on a plush rug, a chessboard between her and Owen. "You know I'm 3 moves away from ending you, right?" she teased. Owen raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? You sound awfully confident for someone who just sacrificed her queen." She grinned. "That's not a loss. That's a distraction." "Spoken like a true Carrington," Sloane called from the doorway, holding 3 mugs of hot cocoa. Arya lit up. "Extra marshmallows?" Sloane winked. "A mountain." She handed Owen his cup, then knelt beside Arya, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulder. The girl leaned into the embrace like it was second nature now, because it was. "I was thinking," Arya said, eyes twinkling, "maybe we could write a book about all of this." Sloane tilted her head. "All of this?" "Yeah," Arya nodded. "Not just the tournament, but about finding each other, about how families can be made from broken pieces, like puzzles or chessboards." Owen looked at her for a long, tender moment. "What would you call it?" Arya's smile was soft. "The last piece." Sloane's breath caught in her throat. Owen reached over, gently brushing a strand of hair from Arya's forehead. "You always know how to land the final move." Arya shrugged playfully. "Maybe, but only because you both taught me the game." And in that moment, with the sunlight streaming through the windows, the chessboard between them, and the pieces finally in place, they all knew some games aren't about winning. They're about coming home. And the end. Thank you for joining Arya, Owen, and Sloane's journey. If this story touched your heart, let me know. I'd love to hear which moments resonated most with you.